when you consider the upcoming opponents for the Buffalo Bills, they got the Saints coming to town with extra rest. That's week 4. They had the Patriots coming to town after that. Sunday Night Football, week 5. Then they go to Atlanta for Monday Night Football, week 6. Okay, the Falcons, under the right circumstances, that could be a trouble spot, but they got the bye on the back end. I don't know, 6-0 at the break. That doesn't look ridiculous at this point. Then you're at Carolina. Need I say more? Then they've got the showdown with the Chiefs, which, based upon the way the Chiefs are playing, I don't know how much of a showdown that's going to be unless the Chiefs turn things around pretty quickly. Then you get to the back half of the schedule. Look, the Buccaneers are no slouch. The Texans on a short week. Okay, maybe.
Who knows?
Texans don't
Who knows what they'll
do well
be
against elite teams. They don't do well against elite teams. They just don't. There's a lot of wins on that schedule. I think
That's
the
right.
1 seed at this point, if they don't get the 1 seed, it's on them. Because it's not like it's Murderer's Row this year. You know, there are certain years where the schedule works out in a way where you're like, man, who'd you piss off at the league office to get that schedule? Especially that, I mean, the games are determined by formula, but just the arrangement and all the tough games early and whatever it may be. You know, quick turnaround here, and then you step into that. No, there's nothing about the schedule that you look at and say, oh, boy. So they can pace themselves. And this is about January. And they want to get to February. I'm concerned about the defense in a big spot. I recognize the reality that everything changes. Nick Wright was on yesterday, and he's an unabashed Chiefs fan, and he recognizes, and I recognize, it doesn't matter how well the Bills' regular season goes when it's Kansas City at Buffalo in the divisional round.
That's right.
Then it's 60 minutes of football, and are you or are you not going to be haunted by the games of the past? And are you not going to be paralyzed by the fact that all that stuff that went well from week 1 through week 18 doesn't mean jack diddly squat other than it got you home field advantage for the game? You can get home field advantage by a tiebreaker. You can get home field advantage by a 5-game margin in the standings. It doesn't matter. You got to deliver in that moment. And it's all building toward that. And maybe Sean McDermott is slow and steadying this thing through the easier parts of the schedule because they understand, okay, we can't just fast forward to January. We have to get there, but let's make sure that when we get there, we still got something left. We're peaking, not fading, and we held back some of our best stuff. We didn't use it against Miami. We didn't use it against New Orleans. We didn't use it against Carolina because we didn't have to. We saved it for you, Kansas City. That's kind of the mindset that they need if they are going to bust through and get back to a Super Bowl.
Well, you say the phrase like bust through, and I heard Brandon Beane talking about this when they lost last year. So they lost last year in the playoffs. It came down to the fourth down play. He got the first down. Oh, no, he didn't get the first down. I wish we had more. We had better technology. He certainly got the first down. That's a bad measurement, on and on. And he's talking about when you get this close, you just have to keep pushing on the door, and finally you'll go in. Okay, it made sense. I agree with that. But the problem with them, Buffalo, when they play Kansas City, it's almost as if they overthink it. And and I think the 13 seconds just really scar. How could it not? It goes back to 13 seconds. 13 seconds. You got the game in the bag and until you don't and you lose there. And so they do a lot of good things. I felt like, last year against Kansas City, they had a lot of opportunities and they didn't take advantage of some things that they had in their favor. So are they prepared to do that? Are they prepared to do that against Kansas City? When they see Kansas City, will they say, this is who we are now? We've grown from 2 or 3 years ago, or do they go back to the default position of we've we're not as good as you guys, but we got to prove that we can get past you in the postseason, even though right now Buffalo is better than Kansas City. But Kansas City's got a much more decorated resume, obviously.
Well, and it's regular season Kansas City versus playoff Kansas City. That's the difference. They can beat them in the regular season, but something happens when you get to the postseason. You mentioned the 13 seconds. That leaves a scar. I talked earlier about Super Bowl 49 with the Seahawks, and it was Jeremy Lane who suffered the badly broken arm.
Good one.
And he was replaced by Tharold Simon. That's not me. That's Gary. Tharold Simon is the guy who came in and was targeted repeatedly by Tom Brady. But the end of that game left a scar with the Seahawks that didn't go away until most of the roster that was on that team was gone. The run,
it still hasn't gone away.
They threw the pass. They didn't run, right?
It will never go away. It'll never go away.
I mean, and ultimately, after the 2017 season, they basically cleaned out any of the veterans who were left because the Pete Carroll message was falling flat, because everything he said was being run through the lens of, you're the guy that threw the ball instead of running. And it was when it was obvious to everything in the world that Marshawn Lynch was going to score on the next play if you just run the expletive deleted ball. So I say that because that's part of what the Bills' overall experience is.
Yeah, you got a Super Bowl.
And you win. You win 2 Super Bowls in a row. You're a dynasty.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Bills are trying to overcome that 13 seconds. And here's the reality. You talk about, you're knocking on the door, the Brandon B thing, you knock on the door, eventually it's going to open. The problem is you don't get on the porch very often. And you only have so many times you're going to be on that porch. And with each passing trip back to the porch, there's only so many left. And you're haunted by the ghosts of door knockings past, like the 13 seconds. It's like if you have a bad Christmas and you say, I'm determined next year Christmas isn't going to be bad. Well, it only comes around once a year. And then there's all that pressure because you've been waiting a year for the chance to redeem yourself for last year's bad Christmas. And then what happens? You have another bad Christmas because you're thinking about how last Christmas was bad and you're going to do everything you can to make it better. That's the psychology that I think at times gets overlooked, but is just very intertwined with the human experience. I think that's one of the reasons why football is so compelling. There is so much about it, and they try to overcomplicate it with analytics and X's and O's, and I know that's a big part of the game. But I think at times they lose sight of how the human experience informs the way teams operate, and how do we get past bad moments, and how do we process and understand. And when that moment comes back around, exactly one trip around the sun later, how do you forget about the last time it went badly? How do you capitalize on the memory that it went well the last time? Whatever the Bills are doing wrong, the Chiefs are doing right. Right. Because the Chiefs know how to slip into postseason mode and get it done and build on that. And watch, they're going to struggle this season, scratch and claw, maybe get the 6th seed, I don't know. And then when they show up in the playoffs, different team. Here we are. We know this drill. You're going to get nervous. You're going to pee in your pants. And we're going to just go out and do our thing.
It's the art of silencing the voices in your head, or the voice, the most negative inner voice you can have. Just telling that voice to shut up. It is different this time. Because you're right, psychology is a big part of it. That's why Kansas City is so content in the playoffs, in the AFC. They know they'll figure it out. They did it all last year. Oh, they're not that good. They're not that good. Oh, they're so lucky. Look at the winner they got over the Raiders. Look at the win over Denver. They shouldn't have won that game. Oh, how lucky. And it got them to the Super Bowl until a team that is not dealing with any kind of psychology against Kansas City says, okay, they can't stop us. Their offensive line is not what it should be. We'll get them. And so, but Kansas City in the AFC against Buffalo and against the Ravens, Kansas City has a confidence in the playoffs that both of those franchises don't have because they're fighting history. The Ravens are the same, got the same kind of stuff. Oh, here we go again. Oh, we had another record-setting season. And we had another record-setting season. We didn't turn the ball over that much. Now we're turning the ball over in the postseason. Oh, we finally got Kansas City at home. We only scored 10 points. I mean, they're fighting the negativity of the past where Kansas City is dealing with the positivity of the past. And eventually, Mike, that stuff, it doesn't matter when you say, okay, it's not the psychology. We got more talent than this team, and we're just going to kick their ass. And eventually you do it, but it takes a lot to get you to that point and get out of your own way, get out of your own head, literally.
Well, and that's what the Eagles were able to do in Super Bowl 59. They recognized we're more talented. They recognized we can overpower this team. They recognized the way to beat this team is to not be haunted by the ghost of Super Bowls past. Learn from what went wrong there. And you know what? The number one lesson is don't be ahead by only 10 points in the second half because he'll get you. We have to go out there and we have to dominate from the outset. We have to take advantage of every opportunity. We have to be up by 20 points at halftime. We can give them no opening. So they knew what to do. And in a weird sort of way, because I thought one thing that may help the Bills and the Ravens this time around in the postseason is the Chiefs resigning to the fact that another one of those games is waiting for them if they make it to the Super Bowl. Well, maybe the worst thing for the Bills and the Ravens that ever happened this season so far was when the Eagles only beat the Chiefs by 3 points, because I think the Chiefs probably came out of that game thinking, you know what? We can beat these guys. Yeah, good. Bring it on. Bring it on. Come back to the Super Bowl. And if it's one of the other teams from the NFC, they'll think, oh, well, we can beat them too. Like the thing that would have been the biggest impediment to the Chiefs' overall mentality, getting blown out again in the Super Bowl, that's gone now.
Yep.
And that's bad. That's bad for the Bills, and that's bad for the Ravens.
Yeah, you think about that Chiefs game against Philly. You got no Rashee Rice. You got no Xavier Worthy, and the big deep threat in this game is Tyquan Thornton. Patriots cast off Tyquan Thornton, getting a long touchdown that makes the game competitive. And if you're Kansas City, you say, okay, this is not going to be us. Once we get our squad together, if we can just kind of hold on. We got to win the game. We got to win some games here, but we win some games. We just kind of hang around. We get our guys back. We like our chances against most teams in football.
Let's hear a little bit from Josh Allen, who noticeably was showing the signs of getting popped in the nose. You could see that yellow bruising that takes a few days to come out. You could see that he got hit pretty good. He had the visor on, but he had no signs of it on the field. Here he is on the Bills starting off the season 3-0.
You know, we're obviously doing our job, going 1-0 each week. Still a lot to learn from, a lot to grow, a lot of room for growth in this group. A lot of young guys, but guys are stepping up. There's been some guys down with injuries, and guys are stepping up and making some big-time plays for us, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, I mean, it's a close unit that's, gelling together really well right now, and got to keep finding ways to win football games.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.